Good morning. My name is Em. This is Life's Table, and I still have my other my other camera. We are making, dare I say it, we're kind of making dessert today instead of breakfast, but it's still relatively healthy and it can be transferred to a breakfast dish pretty easily. We're making fruit crumble slash fruit cobbler. If you guys would like, I can go ahead. I'm gonna do crumble just because I prefer the crumble topping with like the granola oaty sort of flavoring, and I know that we have granola. If you would prefer more of the cobbler topping, which is more of like, if you think about like strudel topping, that like sweet powdery topping on some of our muffins and some of our fruit dishes, I'll go ahead and post like an alternate recipe here that you can use. But because I have granola, I have granola that needs to get finished. So I'm going to go ahead and use crumble. And I know that you all bought granola for last week anyway. And then to make this more of a breakfast instead of a dessert for you all, if you want to, you can get vanilla flavored yogurt instead of perhaps the vanilla ice cream that normally goes with our fruit cobblers. You can use vanilla Greek yogurt instead to get that little extra kick of protein and a little extra goodness to make it more of a breakfast than it is a dessert. That said, I'm celebrating somebody's birthday tonight. I'm going to bring fruit crumble to go with the cake and the other deliciousness that we will be having. Woo, words. The coffee clearly has not kicked in quite yet. But anyway, let's tie back our hair if we have to. We'll put on an apron if we've got one, and let's get cooking good looking. We've got a lot to review for resiliency today at Life's Table. Yay. By preheating our oven to 350. And then I'm going to go ahead and begin cutting up some of these bits of fruit. Let's get some bowls out. And slightly larger bowl, and then our big bowl. Did I intend to need so many dishes? No, I did not. I'm going to be individually portioning mine because I'm using a variety of fruit. I'll be individually portioning mine into my cupcake tin. Good gracious. But if you have a pie dish or a square pan or like a 9x13 pan, all of those will also work. What you should consider doing, which is what I'm going to do, is little bits of butter. Yeah, teeny tiny little morsels to go in each of these. And let's begin talking about resilience because I'm a little worried that I'm going to run out of time. But for resilience, some things that we need to know, because we talked about building resilience yesterday, and obviously in weeks prior, I believe this is like week 2 or week 3 even. It is not our ability to bounce back when we face and experience hardship, and I need you all to understand that. Bouncing back is not something that we as a species do. When people say things like, can things just go back to being how they were? Things used to be so much easier for us. What happened? I wish that it would go back to being easy like it was. Well, life happens, change happens, and as such, we adapt and we adjust accordingly. That's like essential to our survival, really. So there is no such thing as bouncing back after a stressful incident, because that presumes that you will then be returning to the state that you were at before the stressful incident happened. And that's just not true. That's not how we work. Change happens, we adapt and we adjust to that change, and then we move forward. So resiliency, by extension, is not the ability to bounce back. It is the ability to bounce forward. Okay, I've got a fair amount of butter now in each of these. I'm going to go ahead and put this away and get this into the oven so it can start warming with the oven. And we'll move on to washing our fruit. Oh man, these peaches are ready to go. Is this? Oh, I think one might be a peach and one might be a nectarine. You can feel the difference Peaches are fuzzy, nectarines are smooth. They're both delicious. I've also got a plum here. Maybe I'll combine. I'll do a peach nectarine plum medley. I'll do an apple, and then I'll do the rest berry. Yes, exciting. We'll give all of these a good rinse, right? And I will get out a knife. So resiliency is not the ability to bounce back. And I feel like that's a very common misconception. Let's see if we can, oh yeah, separate this. Great. I don't think I'm going to peel these. I'm going to be lazy and just keep the skin on them. It will change the texture of it. It'll have a very different texture. If you are very particular about having like a smooth, nice, even tasting cobbler, then I would suggest peeling. But because I am feeling a little lazy, I'm not going to do it. We cut these into slices and then nice little bite-sized pieces that will further cook down and soften as we go. It's not the ability to bounce back, it's the ability to bounce forward. Think about a few team building exercises or examples that come to mind, but the most obvious one is if you've ever tried to unbend and straighten a paper clip. And once you spend a few minutes trying to get this thing as straight as possible, part 2 of that activity is they then tell you, okay, make it back into a paperclip. And we learn it's impossible to get it back to exactly the way that it was, because change happens. You have changed the structure of this paperclip in unbending it. Getting it back to how it was, you can get close, but it will never be the same. My nectarine is next. It's not feasible, it's not doable, but you can still get a functioning paperclip out of it. It's not irreparably broken. You don't need to throw it away. You can still use a paperclip that you've reformed. It just doesn't quite look the way that it originally did. If you guys have other good examples of that, by all means, please get them in the comments. But as such, it's our ability to like learn and grow. It's our ability to still try and use that paperclip that also contributes to resiliency. I don't just get stressed out and then I say, well, I'm broken and I can't function anymore and I'm done. And there are some times when it really feels like that. There are some very stressful incidences where you're like, I will never be how I once was. And that can be really, really hard to come to terms with. For those of you who perhaps have gotten into sports injuries or like car accidents where you have damaged permanently your body or your mind, that transition, that sudden change of I'm not how I once was anymore, it can feel like that paperclip is never going to work again. But with time and with learning how to use this new paperclip, and it takes time, and some days are easier than others to learn, but with time it does become a paperclip that you can use again. That is resiliency. It's the ability to learn and grow from what has happened to you and to continue on forward with your new normal. Another thing to note about resiliency, it's not an inherent character trait. It's not something that people are either born with it or they aren't. And sometimes it can feel like that. There are some people who are just really resilient people and you're like, wow, you must have been born this way. It comes so naturally to you to react and adapt and adjust and move forward as if it didn't impact you the way that perhaps it impacted other people. You're natural at it. In the same way that the professional athletes make their sport look like they were born doing it. And there are some sports, obviously, that cater more favorably to certain individuals based off of character traits that they perhaps were born with. The example that comes to mind is basketball and volleyball favoring tall people. And okay, I smell the delicious goodness. I'm going to pull the tin out of the oven just so that the butter doesn't burn, but it is nice and hot, which is exciting. Ooh. All right. And we'll give this a little go around with our brush. Make sure the sides are good to go. For what comes next, it's going to require a little bit of eyeballing based off of how much fruit you think you have produced. You want a ratio of cornstarch and honey. For cornstarch, it's a 1 tablespoon to 2 cups of fruit ratio, and for honey, it's 1 tablespoon for 3 cups of fruit. So I'm going to guess, for the sake of ease, that this is about 3 cups of fruit. So I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of honey for this, and then I'm going to do 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch, just for the sake of ease. 1 tablespoon and 1/2 tablespoon. So if you have maple syrup instead of honey, this is totally fine. It'll also be very, very tasty. We're gonna do. Perfect. I'll leave it face down in the bowl while we do our cornstarch as well. Open up our cornstarch. And like I said, we want 1.5. Be very careful with this. It likes to go everywhere. We're gonna do 1.5, so 1/2, 1, 1/2. And I'm going to rest this in here just so it doesn't continue to get everywhere. And then I am going to go in with this little rubber spatula, try to get the remainder of this honey out. Give this a good stir. Get it a nice, good, solid coating. What you are trying to accomplish with the cornstarch, just for those of you who are perhaps not familiar, if you think about the consistency of pie filling, comes in a can, and it's got that almost gluey texture. It's not quite syrup, it's not quite jam. Cornstarch, when heated and mixed with these delicious flavors, you can kind of see it already actually. There's like this little, again, like the word that's coming to mind is glompy, but like this gluey sort of texture. That's what you're looking for with this. I'm gonna mix this and set this bowl aside so I can move on to my apple. Remove the sticker, give it a wash, and we'll cut it in half. I don't know if that's how anyone would recommend cutting up an apple, but here we are. And I'm gonna cut around the core, but kind of the way that we do our tomatoes. I'm gonna cut around the core here, and I'll cut through the core here. And then I'll do like a little top and just a little bottom as well. Nice little bit of an apple left over for us to play with. Let's see if I can't get this little baby out. And again, if you wanted to peel these, you're welcome to, but I just don't feel like it. I'm sure I will regret not peeling my apples, but it's too late, and we got other things in our day that we got to do today, like clean our house and go to this party. So we move on. Moving on. There are some character traits that people are just born with, but resiliency is not one of them. Resiliency is like a muscle. And in the same way that you have to really dedicate yourself to healthy living and a healthy lifestyle to reap the benefits of then saying, I'm a healthy person, it's the same thing with resiliency. And in more ways than one. Building muscle is almost exactly the same as building resiliency. It's just subjecting your body to physical stress versus mental stress. When I work out and I use my muscles, I actually tear them. Muscle use causes minor and normal damage. I'm not talking about like pulling or actually like literally tearing your muscles or your ligaments that like requires significant rest and pain management and perhaps surgery. What I'm talking about is normal standard micro tears that happen to your muscle fibers as you use them. And as you progress and get into heavier weights or faster speeds, longer times and distances, I'm going to guess that this is now 2 cups of fruit. So 1 tablespoon of cornstarch to 2 cups of fruit. I'm going to do 1 tablespoon then. 1. That was a little shy, so I'll do a little over now. 2. And I'm going to do 2/3 of a tablespoon of honey. So we'll get as close as we can get. That's probably 2/3. And I guess if it's a little sweeter, it's a little sweeter. Who's going to complain about having a sweeter dessert? Not me. But we give a gentle stir. But just make sure that you see a little bit of this cornstarch on all of your apples. In the same way then that your muscles tear and then reform, and that's kind of what soreness is, them creeping back and binding back together to form stronger muscles as we get stronger. Working out is not us subjecting ourselves to physical stress and then going back to how we were. It is us subjecting ourselves to physical stress and then getting stronger and better for it. It is the exact same thing with resilience. And in the same way then that you need to exercise in order to get those gains and to get that progress that you're looking for and you're seeking, so too do you need to practice resiliency. And I'm not saying like go out and seek out stress more than you need to unnecessarily just to be like, look at how strong and resilient I am. But I am saying that there are ways to, through like making stress your friend, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second, but in the same way that you have these opportunities to build and gain and benefit from physical stress, there are ways to take advantage of and gain and benefit from mental stress. For my berries, I may not even need my berries. I'm going to start divvying these up just to see how far I can get in my little tin. It's going to be great. And I'm just going to start scooping in a little bit at a time. We don't want too much in any one because we still have to go in with the topping, but we're looking at, let's say like half a cup is going into each of these. Maybe like a little bit more, but just about half a cup is going into each of these. So the last one will get one little bit of apple, and then the remainder of my apple then is going to go into the pie tin. I'll get my little spoon out, and we're just going to sprinkle over the top. Like so. You're looking at maybe like 2 tablespoons of granola or topping per cup. Let's get all these into their little cups. And then we'll move on to how to build resilience, since we just established that it is a muscle and it requires exercise. I'm going to get the circular tin out of the oven. Give this a nice little scrape around. And we'll get the rest of our apples in, and we'll top off with our berry mixture. There we go. These will go in. I'll go in now with maybe another. We'll do one at a time just because I don't know how much I'm going to need. I think that'll be plenty. We'll say it's 2 cups. I don't think it even is, but that's okay. 2 cups then is again 1 tablespoon and 2/3 of a thing of honey. And we make sure that everything gets nice and coated. The berries can go in completely frozen still. They'll defrost as it cooks. And I'm just going to layer it, I think, rather than trying to do like half and half. But yeah, let's move on to the 4 C's of resilience. The first C of resilience is challenge. Seeing stress and seeing stressful incidences as that beautiful, wonderful readiness friend that we have. That survival mechanism that has kept us alive. It is something to be embraced and grateful for and thankful for. It isn't something to be feared. It isn't something to be avoided, right? It's inevitable, and it is a part of life, and it's a test, and it is a test that you have passed time and time and time again. You are still here. Your stress mechanisms have kept you alive and well, and maybe not thriving, but certainly surviving as a survival mechanism for years now. Perhaps decades, perhaps half a century. I don't know how old you are. I'm not going to assume. The first C is seeing stress as not an obstacle, but as a challenge, as something that I can do. I can rise to this occasion. I can achieve and accomplish, and I think I just overdid it with the berries, but that's okay. We're just not going to get our ratios right at all, and that's fine. That's our first C, is just, again, like just rising to the occasion and seeing it, perceiving it differently as something to be embraced and to challenge us, but to not overwhelm and overcome us. The next C is control. Part of what stresses us out often is the things that we literally can't control. We can't do anything about the fact that we're stressed out. We can't do anything about the fact that our body perceives this thing as something that is stress worthy. I can't stop my body from activating and releasing hormones like cortisol when I am stressed out. That it's just something that happens. There's so much about life that I can't control. Things like the people that perhaps are stressing me out. I wish that I could. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm stressing, is because I can't control them. But at the end of the day, me stressing about the things I can't control is just not helpful. This is going to go into the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes. I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes so that way I can pull my cupcake tin, because that's going to cook a lot faster than the big pie tin. But 30 minutes for the cupcake sized ones, 40 to like 45 minutes for the larger dishes, perhaps even 55 if you're still not seeing like the bubbly kind of juices going. It just needs more time, and that's okay. The next one, if I can't change it and I can't control it, letting it go. Just choosing to like, okay, you know what? There's no point in stressing about it. I have to let it go. The next one is going to be the commitment. Again, there are certain things that are worth stressing over. They are worth the stress that they elicit. Things like fighting for that promotion. Things like trying to be an elite athlete or very competitive in your field. Things like the family members that we love so freaking much, but oh my gosh, could you please not do that? That commitment to the greater purpose, to others, to whatever motivates you and drives you and pushes you forward, that commitment helps to build resilience, because it continues to motivate you to continue to subject yourself to stress that doesn't necessarily feel stressful, like the type of stress that we want to avoid. My child stresses me out, but it's not a stress that I want to run away from. I'm dedicated to this child. I'm going to do everything that I can to give this child the best life that it can have. Or the dogs, right? Or the partner. I love you so much, but sometimes you do really stress me out. And that's okay, because you're worth the stress. Because we are both better due to the stress. And the last one is the confidence. It's the belief in yourself that you can do it, that then leads you to doing it and overcoming and being better for it. So those are the 4 C's of building resilience. Seeing stress as a challenge, the control of it, controlling the things that I can and letting go of the stress of the things that I can't. The commitment to it, whatever it happens to be, it is worth it. And then the confidence, the belief that it is not only worth it, but that I can do it. 4 parts of ourselves that we can start building resilience with. The first one being our physical self. Getting good food like this in our diets, getting good sleep, exercising, subjecting myself to physical stress helps me with mental stress. What you do when you exercise is you elevate your heart rate the way that happens when you are stressed out. You cause your body to start releasing other hormones than it normally does when you're at your base state, the way that stress does. You elevate your breathing, your blood vessels constrict and send more blood to your muscles the way that it happens with stress. You cognitively begin to focus and fixate on whatever it is that the activity is that you're doing, the way that you do when you're stressed. You essentially are subjecting your body to practice stress. And then you're telling your body, handle it, regulate it, and deal with it. And with repeated exercise, it takes more to get yourself elevated, and you come back down, you regulate much faster. It is good for you to go for a walk every day and breathe some fresh air, to go for a jog, to hit the gym, to go swim laps, whatever it is that you got to do it, because helping your body with physical stress helps your life with mental stress. So that's the first one. Good night's sleep, diet, exercise, the physical side. There is also the mental side, changing that mindset, seeing stress as an ally, as a friend, as a survival mechanism, as an opportunity to rise to the occasion. And then also practicing some of those more like the mindfulness, the meditation, practicing again that mindfulness, meditating, giving yourself the time to woo-saw really, really does help with resilience as well. 3 is the self spirit, feeding your soul, finding things that again are worth that stress and investing in them. Finding that purpose, that sense of self that drives you and moves you forward will help with resilience because it builds up that commitment. And then the last one is building resiliency through community, through surrounding yourself with people who either are very, very resilient or who bring you happiness and help you be more resilient. That's the 4th part of this: our mind, our body, our spirit, and our community, our surroundings. Finding that support system, because sometimes we can't just do it by ourselves. We have to have the community to help us out as well. Here. With that, I think that covers just about everything that I wanted to review with you all today. Timer is ticking down again, 30 minutes or so for the smaller ones, 45 minutes to closer to like an hour if you need it for the larger ones. What you're going to do then is you're going to let this, when it's done, cool down to room temperature. So let it sit, let it cool to room temperature, and then once it's down to room temperature, it becomes even tastier if you refrigerate it and you let it cool and congeal for a couple of hours to overnight. Now, if you're ready for it right away, you're ready for it right away. But what's going to happen is that gluey texture that you're hoping for with the cornstarch, it's not going to have time to really develop and work its magic. That comes with cooling and setting. And then if you want to reheat it for breakfast tomorrow or something like that, you're welcome to, of course. But serving hot is just going to give you hot berry granola jam, which is delicious. It's going to taste good, but that texture is not going to be what you're quite looking for. So if you want that good texture, again, let it cool to room temperature and then fridge it for like a few hours to overnight if you'd like. And then if you want it for breakfast, again, add like a little scoop of Greek yogurt to it, maybe like some vanilla yogurt. And then if you want it for dessert, like I'm going to have, then we do ice cream. With that said, thank you so much for taking care of you today. I'm so happy that you're coming on this journey with me. I hope that you're coming on it for the long haul. I'm better for it. I hope that you all are too. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bon appetit.